Day 41. I'm reading Reader Come Home by Marian Wolf, page 155. So I'm going to repeat one paragraph from yesterday. So our group studies well over 1,000 kindergarten children from every economic circumstance and from all over New England. Each child was tested on a large battery of educational measures. The result highlighted two facts, one unsurprising and one potentially transformative. First, American children bring with them profound cognitive and linguistic differences the first day of formal schooling. Not a surprise. Second, these differences fall into fairly discrete groupings that predict how the children will achieve in reading later in school. This could change the trajectories of many children. Specifically, 6 developmental profiles emerge that can help teachers and parents understand what each group needs and how each group learns to read best from the very start. 2 of the profiles comprise children who are either average or very much above average and will need only good instruction to excel. Another group has difficulty with letters and sounds and may well come from environments where there is a little exposure to the alphabet or the English language. We can redress this issue fairly straightforwardly. Some children in this group, however, may have more rare visual-based difficulties that need further testing. 3 of the profiles comprise children who we know will go on to be diagnosed with some form of reading disability or dyslexia. The brain organization that gives children with dyslexia significant advantages later in their lives. In areas such as art and architecture, pattern recognition in radiology and finance, and entrepreneurship. Disadvantages them during their first years of learning. There are few discoveries more important to those of us who study dyslexia than to be able to predict it before the child has to endure ignominious daily public failures before peers, parents, and teachers. Indeed, there is little more destructive for a 6-year-old child than to suddenly think that he or she is dumb because everyone else can read but him or her, whether the reason is biological or environmental, or, in some cases, both. By assessing struggling young readers early on, we can prevent some of the emotional detritus that often characterize their reading experiences. In the process, we can save society a large sum of money by preventing the need for some prison beds and by preserving the spirit of children with dyslexia, who can then go on to become some of our most creative members and successful entrepreneurs. The critical point here is that we are now on the threshold of being able to predict highly specific reading trajectories of young children before they ever begin to read. Other researchers at UCSF School of Medicine, led by Fumiko Hoft and Maria Luzia Gorno-Tampini, are working to refine our batteries and profiles, but already such information in the hands of trained teachers could prevent some reading problems, ameliorate others, and deliver intensive early intervention for the children most at risk for dyslexia. Nothing in reading acquisition is more important than beginning systematic, targeted intervention as early as possible. This research helps all children, not just those with more obvious learning challenges. The prediction battery also demonstrated the tremendous developmental variability at this age among the largest group of the more typically developing children. Some children, particularly boys, show no obvious areas of weakness in their profile, but are simply not yet ready. Understanding this group requires more in-depth evaluation to ensure that there are no underlying weaknesses, and also more reasonable expectations for our children than is sometimes the case. Too many schools have school administrators who are under such pressure for their children to do well in later grades on the publicly recorded state tests that they pressure their teachers to push reading acquisition earlier and earlier in the kindergarten curriculum. The Johns Hopkins and pediatric neurologist Martha Denclaw vehemently argues that we may be causing as many impediments to reading as preventing them by our push to get every child reading before they leave kindergarten. The British reading researcher Usha Goswami reinforced this conclusion in a study of reading practices in Europe to establish when reading instruction ideally should begin. She found that in the countries that introduced reading later, reading developed with fewer problems for the children. In other words, European children who begin instruction in what we would consider first grade acquired reading more easily than those who began a year earlier. These results are, to be sure, confounded because there is more orthographic regularity in the languages of the countries that introduce reading a year later than we do. Nevertheless, there are sound physiological and behavioral reasons why some children are simply developmentally not ready in kindergarten. The bottom line is that fears about third grade state test results in the United States should never dictate decisions about when whole kindergarten classes receive instruction for reading. Some children are pushed to read too hard too soon before they are developmentally ready. Some children read well before they end kindergarten or even enter it. Others are sent to first grade to receive the intervention du jour in their school that is inappropriate for their specific learning profiles. Perceptive, well-trained teachers, excellent prediction tools, and better targeted, evidence-grounded interventions are our best defense against any of these all too common errors that derail children's development. Okay, I should stop here. Thanks so much. Please correct me if you can.